everyone, and a very warm welcome to CNBC-TV18.com presents Accelerate Your Cloud Journey, Reinvent Faster with Security and Observability in association with AWS and Cisco. And I'm your host, Ruchira Sharma. This is the last leg of an exclusive three-city on-ground event that brings together industry experts, tech stalwarts, and thought leaders in the space of cloud, observability, and security. After Delhi and Mumbai, it is only right that the final edition takes place in the startup and IT hub of the country, Bengaluru. Through this evening, we will have numerous thought-provoking conversations that will unlock the potential of cloud, observability, and securities for digital native businesses and also create a roadmap for the future of this advanced technology. So let's get the ball rolling. The importance of cloud security and observability for digital native businesses and the ITES sector at large cannot be ignored. But before I call the first speaker, let me bring in some numbers to kind of set the context. So as per a recent NASSCOM report, large-scale adoption of cloud is expected to contribute $380 billion to the GDP of the country by the year 2026. It is also likely to add $14 million in terms of employment opportunities. So some great numbers over there. Clearly, accelerated cloud migration will bring in plenty of benefits like scalability, agility, flexibility, and affordability. But it is also crucial to focus on security to ensure that DNBs can offer a safe and seamless customer experience. And this is where full-stack observability plays a very critical role. It improves end-to-end system visibility, network health monitoring, and also ensures timely vulnerability detection and resolution in applications. So today, at this very special event, DNB founders and the ITES stalwarts have come together to deliberate on the immense potential of adopting cloud security and observability solutions and also decode the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead of us. These conversations will aim to empower the sector and enable them to foster their growth journey as they navigate through the cloud framework. So to understand this space better, I would like to invite our first speaker for the evening, Mr. Apoorv Kumar, co-founder and CTO at Refine India. So please give him a big hand, Mr. Apoorv Kumar. Please join us.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for braving the traffic and being here with us this evening. Quick introduction. So I'm Apoorv. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Refine. We started close to 20 months back, so we are not that old, but we have grown phenomenally. During this period of the last 20 odd months. At this point, we are working with some of the largest corporates in India. It was phenomenal to see a couple of clients outside. It was great meeting them. What we do is we work with some of the largest enterprises in India. We partner with them to provide financial wellness services to their employees. And in this journey, at this point, we are catering to over 2 million employees. And it's been interesting how the entire cloud ecosystem has helped us evolve much faster than it would have when maybe I started my career, or even before that, when it was unheard of to achieve these scales in the time that we have been able to. So I would quickly love to discuss how our journey has been, and particularly we have been digital native from day one, cloud native from day one. Being in the fintech industry, security has always been the core of where we stand. Everything revolves around security and compliance. And this is something that the entire cloud ecosystem has allowed us to achieve. Clouds, when the entire idea came about, it was largely obvious just how amazing the potential was. It allowed us to have incredible scalable capacities. We could be operating with a single server today, a few hundred servers tomorrow if we wanted. And similarly, scale down if required, particularly companies who are new in the ecosystem, who are not very, very well funded, or definitely companies who are looking to optimize their resource utilization. For them, scaling up, scaling down was a non-trivial, was an absolute trivial choice. Scalability was one of the critical aspects. The other was reliability. Someone else managing a cloud, a dedicated infrastructure provider like AWS, for example, we are on AWS. An entity like that will give you a level of reliability which is very hard to achieve, even for large businesses, let alone startups like when we started our journey. Similarly, the agility of the sheer number of tools that you can deploy on quick succession. It's not like you have to plan for using every single tool from day one. As and when your business matures, you will be able to deploy the resources in real time as and when your business needs it. Similarly, for any business, I don't think cost efficiency is something specific to a particular size of the business. Ultimately, everything boils down to P&L, and that's where the expenses come in very critically. So whether it's cloud infrastructure expense, whether it's the people expense associated with it, the overhead, the sheer amount of overhead it takes to manage a large infrastructure, it immediately shows the cloud immediately shows benefit. And that's where the entire promise of cloud was, and it has delivered and gone beyond it. At this point, I think cloud is the preferred solution to go to whenever someone is trying to launch a new service, even for entities which have been in businesses for decades have realized that cloud is the place to be going forward. But we work with enterprises on a regular basis, and we field their questions. There are three critical aspects that we always get questioned on. Us being cloud native, although we have massive benefits which come alongside it, just how quickly Refine is able to deploy our solutions for our customers, which is a matter of days, maximum a week or two, which is unheard of compared to what you would incur as a cost of deployment if you were deploying an on-prem solution. But there are three aspects that we constantly get questions on, and and for a very good reason. First being data security. Obviously, data, it's not only the new oil, it's the bloodline of the entire industry. And particularly, it's important to secure our own valuable asset, which is our data. So data security always ends up being prioritized in terms of questions. How are we ensuring that the data that we are putting on your ecosystem is secured? And this is where we have worked very in a very detailed manner with the right set of certifications, whether it's ISO, whether it's SOC, whether it's empaneling the right set of vendors to be able to test our infrastructure, whether it's building the right team. So we have invested pretty heavily on the data security side. Same goes with compliance. Fintech has a very, very interesting position in the industry where it's combining a heavily regulated side of the ecosystem, which is finance, with a relatively fast moving part of the ecosystem, which is tech. And it tries to merge them together, and they typically are not very compatible. And you realize that when you are trying to achieve tech goals and finance goals at the same time. And that's where compliance becomes critical. So the more support you have in order to be compliant, the easier it is for you to be able to scale your business. And I think a lot of solutions that are coming about with respect to cloud and compliance really helps in our journey. Finally, privacy is something every government in the world is recognizing, and we should too. Europe was the first to come up with its own GDPR guidelines. Government of India has come up with its own draft bill, which will go live in the near future. And it's actually asking for recommendations on how the entire ecosystem should evolve, which is a phenomenal idea. Building these guidelines in partnership with the entire ecosystem is an amazing idea. And to achieve all of these goals, particularly the three questions that I talked about, there are quite a few solutions which are becoming very prevalent now, and new entities providing solutions to make sure that companies starting from the size of a very early startup to large scale enterprises, all of their needs are met with respect to all of those issues that I talked about, and they all have very different challenges. For instance, a fintech which is just coming into existence, for them it's very easy to be cloud native. So the entire ecosystem starts on the cloud. You think how you are going to operate on the cloud, and therefore it's much easier. But then you have to start build things from scratch. Large enterprises have the other problem where they already have large stacks deployed, and they have to figure out now how do they start using the benefits of the cloud without losing the benefits of what they have already built. And this is where we have very interesting solutions around multi-cloud, hybrid. Multi-cloud allows you to combine different cloud service providers, and hybrid would allow you to use a cloud provider for certain services that you have, whereas still using your on-prem solutions that you already have. Compliance, like I talked about, it's one of the key aspects. Going forward, it's going to become more and more critical. Being in the fintech industry, it's just something that we wake up and feel like, okay, we have to cater to compliance needs. But more and more industries, as and when they scale, they come into the ambit of regulations. And it's very critical that our service providers, particularly on the cloud, give us certain solutions out of the box. Imagine if you were to try and go for a certification, and after having built the entire ecosystem, that's not something you planned for on day one when you were starting the business. Or even if you're a large enterprise, you did not plan for it. But the moment you move your resources to the cloud itself is able to tell you whether you're compliant and to what level you are compliant. So you can put all the right constraints in place. And that's where a lot of out-of-box compliance solutions are helping us change the game. One thing that has always been on the forefront of innovation is the kind of ML, machine learning oriented solutions that we can deploy. Machine learning, when it started, it was often seen as a problem. It was seen as a solution looking for a problem. In the last decade or 2 decades, we don't have any dearth of problem statements. In fact, anything that is at this point being done by people, there is always a question, hey, can we automate it? And that's where ML comes in. Security not being any different. The entire cloud infrastructure not being any different. There's always this question of, can we use machine learning to reduce our manual effort that is going into managing the entire ecosystem? Can ML tell us what parts of our ecosystem are under threat or are being attacked in real time? And that's where a lot of solutions are coming to on the forefront to be able to help us with that. Zero trust, again, an entirely new concept that people are wholeheartedly accepting, which allows you to, with very little effort, maybe early overhead, but then beyond a particular point, it gives you such massive benefits that it becomes almost a no-brainer. And DevSecOps, it's a very unique terminology that came about. We used to have DevOps, and security used to be a separate. So typically, it would be a separate dedicated team which would be looking at security. What people realized is that fast-moving environments require both of them to be merged, and that's where we have the entire infrastructure around DevSecOps now becoming more and more prevalent, which allows us to deploy security as and when we are deploying our applications. So security is all sort of built into whatever we are putting in place for our customers. Depending upon where we start our journey, like I mentioned, it's hard or relatively easier to become cloud native. But what I have experienced, it is a lot of mindset change alongside infrastructure-based solutions. So it's not just about can we use this particular tool, but when we are building the architecture, are we thinking cloud first? Or are we still using the prior solutions which were available? Okay, can we deploy a couple of servers? When I started my journey with one of the largest investment banks, cloud was an absolutely unknown concept. Particularly in that particular industry, they would never trust their data on a third-party ecosystem. And now they have actually made big strides in converting it. But I remember the pain of actually requesting a 5 or 6 server nodes, and then having to wait for a particular period of time, getting the budget approvals to be able to have that entire hardware available. So but there's also inertia associated with it. There are also certain inherent benefits that come with it. Okay, once you have the servers, you have certain benefits that you have. Okay, there's this dedicated resource which is available to you. It takes a bit of learning curve to start thinking in terms of cloud, that it's not maybe a dedicated hardware resource, but it's as close as it can get to that. and you are effectively getting the same benefits, but then you have to keep certain things in mind. For example, it's definitely a third-party solution that you are using. So have you done your due diligence in identifying all the security parameters which are required for it? Are they the best in the industry? Are they following the right guidelines? Are they themselves compliant? So that forms the base for starting to think cloud first. And once we have done that due diligence, now we will be able to retrieve all the benefits of becoming cloud first. Cloud does not take away the onus of thinking in terms of a security architecture. It definitely reduces the workload associated with it. If you were using an on-prem solution, which used to be the case, it was such a tightly bound architecture that it's relatively easier to manage security around that, particularly if you're an established organization. With the cloud, there are tools to support you, but there's nothing which replaces thinking in terms of security and building a reference security architecture. So whenever we start thinking of deploying a new service, the entire architecture, security architecture has to be primary whenever we start that goal. The entire idea behind cloud was that it reduces our overhead. We don't have to deploy an entire team to manage our hardware. And ultimately, as and when our cloud ecosystem grows, we could be using a large amount of resources, both manpower and the hardware, and so hardware which is on cloud now. So the need for optimization does not go away. It's just that certain things are more optimized now, which were harder when you were on-prem. But being on the cloud, the need for optimizing still doesn't go away. And that's where you need to have automation coming into the picture to give you all of those benefits beyond what cloud is already providing. So automation, having proper orchestration mechanisms, to using the right visibility tools which give you the right visibility at the right time, are critical to be able to operate very well in the cloud ecosystem. And governance around cloud ends up being one of the things that get overlooked when we start thinking technology. First thing we think about is, okay, we have these use cases, we have a certain number of users that we are going to cater to. Are we provisioned appropriately? Is the latency in control? Is the system going to be reliable? And often governance takes a backseat, and that can backfire later once the entire system has scaled, and then you realize that the governance has not been put in place. Although the entire cloud ecosystem allows you to retroactively put very good governance controls, but that's not the ideal approach. Governance should be a very critical thought whenever we are starting to build the entire architecture. And again, what does not change is being adaptive and having a sense of just how critical the entire ecosystem is, and giving it the right amount of attention, building the right checks, balances, and controls in place. Those are fundamentals that will continue to be, even though, and they continue to be from what we had in the entire era of on-prem deployments to the entire cloud ecosystem. So those fundamentals continue to be. If we are able to deploy all of these guidelines, typically cloud gives you a massive advantage in terms of agility, scalability, reliability. And at that point, the focus goes into the benefits that we have. It is much easier to bring stakeholders on board, whether it's internal, whether it's your clients, whether it's your users, if we have the right controls in place. And ultimately, it's about our own confidence, the system that we have built, whether we are confident that we are giving the best possible service to our customers, to our clients. Are we true to them? And that's the level of confidence we can get if we are using the cloud ecosystem in the right way. With that, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion this evening. Quickly about Refine. So we work with some of the largest enterprises, and we have to cater to all of these particular needs. So these are particularly close to our heart. We have gone through elaborate certifications, and we know the benefits that the entire cloud ecosystem brings us. In fact, what we are trying to build at Refine is the financial wellness platform for employees, and it's sort of a cloud for financial services. It's not we are not delivering computing, we are delivering financial services. So with that, thank you so much for your time this evening, and I'd like to hand over the mic to the anchor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Apoorv. That was a very interesting and insightful conversation. And as you mentioned, as enterprises navigate through hybrid and multi-cloud environment, they definitely need to focus on security. But moving on to the next part of this evening, we would like to also explore the importance of both security and observability for DNBs, and also the need to converge the two. So, as we move forward in the current times, which are extremely competitive, DNBs and ITES sector need to innovate constantly to meet constantly changing customer expectations, as they need to stay agile and relevant. Now, to achieve all this, it is imperative to work with new age emerging technologies like Mr. Apoorv also mentioned AI, ML, IoT. However, whenever we talk about an accelerated cloud journey, we also need to focus and a lot of caution has to be exercised about suspicious activities, network health, application performance, and of course, data breaches. Now, this makes it extremely necessary to relook at the entire security posture and adopt full stack observability to enable safe and seamless operations, and of course, also better collaboration among various teams. So, at this point, to elaborate more about this space, I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Satinder Singh, Head Solutions Architect, Digital Native Businesses at Amazon Web Services, to throw more light and share his insights. So please give him a big hand. Mr. Satinder Singh, please join us on stage.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome once again. I'm going to be talking about three things. The first one is the whole concept of technology and where India is as far as technology adoption is concerned. What are some of the tailwinds? The second thing that I wanted to talk about was what's leading to this modern application era. That's going to be the second thing, and I'm going to be talking about an example. And the third thing is why security and visibility is so important in a modern application world. So without further ado, let's start. Let's look at the tech landscape of India. If you think it, to my mind, there are two big tailwinds. The first one is, the first one is the smartphone penetration in India. Rise of internet population, people who have access to network. While you look at these staggering numbers, let me share some more data with you. India, 50% of India's population is under 25 years. We are the youngest nation in the world. And the access to this technology is creating a tailwind wherein we have more than 65,000 active startups, 103 unicorns. India is home to multiple B2B and B2C successful startups and unicorns today. There's a lot of innovation that is happening. That's the first aspect. The second one is the kind of infrastructure that the government is providing, the frameworks that they are providing, whether it's India Stack, DigiLocker, Umang, ONDC, they're facilitating digital transactions and digital innovation in a big way. Now, what it is leading to is unprecedented scale of digitization. These are some of the numbers that I've captured from various publicly available statistics. Transactions on UPI platform, 10 trillion worth of INR transactions, growing more than 100% year over year. 80% Indians have access to banking accounts. 12x growth in volumes of loans which are distributed digitally. The point that I'm trying to make is technology is rapidly changing, and these tailwinds is helping us think about disruptions, think about transformation. And one of the things that is possibly contributing a lot to this is, as my previous speaker talked about, is cloud. And why? Fundamentally, it starts with agility, cost. And I've picked up some other statistics that IDC and various other analysts have done. Usually it starts with speed, agility, cost, the kind of deployments that you can do every year. And cloud does provide a lot of advantages. And I'll come to the security part a little later. But obviously the consensus has evolved that cloud is more secure than running your on-prem infrastructure. And some of the reasons were being attributed by the previous speaker as well. But as people start leveraging cloud, they start realizing that cloud democratizes a lot of advanced technologies. On AWS, we have 200 plus services across various technologies, whether it's machine learning, artificial intelligence, modern applications, IoT, analytics. And some of these capabilities are extremely hard for startups or enterprises to develop on their own. Let me give you one example. A forecasting system. And what we have done is, when you look at forecasting, it has moved away from statistical smoothing techniques to more advanced deep learning kind of technologies. And typically, every business in some way or the other requires a capability to forecast. So what we did was, we at Amazon have perfected the art of forecasting in multiple ways. And we provide the technology in a ready-to-consume API. So you can get machine learning capabilities for forecast without even having a data scientist. And that level of access is helping companies like you to really look at innovation at a rapid pace. Now, coming back to applications, proliferations of applications, let's talk about modern applications for a sec. And I think the example that I'll take here is maybe Amazon itself. So let's go back to 25 years back, 2001, 2002. This was a dot-com bust. People were emerging out of it, and Amazon was also kind of thinking through what should be the growth strategy. At that time, the biggest challenge that we had was Amazon had got this big monolith, one application server, one Oracle database. It took us almost like 11 hours to do a single deployment. And we recognized, for us to survive, what is the most important capability that Amazon should have? We should be able to reduce our time to market, deliver new innovations very, very quickly. And that led us to think about, how do we evolve our application architecture? So we made two decisions. The first one, which is not there on the slide, is about the people part. And I don't know how many of you are aware of Conway's law. It says that the software design actually mimics your organizational communication strategy. So we made few changes. I won't have time to get into that, but we call it two pizza teams. That concept is widely available on internet. If any one of you is keen, just go and read about that. But from a tech standpoint, we did two things. The first one is the first thing that is mentioned here, reduce footprint of core systems. You can only modernize an application if you are able to reduce the surface area. It should do the things that is of utmost value from a business standpoint, and you have to ruthlessly prioritize. That's the first one. The second one was that we decided that every service that we built needs to have an interface, needs to have an API. And what we decided was that interfaces have to be internal, but can be external also when needed. In fact, AWS is born out of that experiment, which is creating an interface that can be made publicly available. So a lot of these services that you see on AWS were initially built by Amazon. Now, when you think about that, one of the things that you would be dealing with is complexity and security. And that's where the risk of ransomware, security attacks become very, very important. Demand for business partners, and especially when you are talking about externalization of interfaces, APIs, security becomes a very, very important concern. The point that I'm trying to make is the visibility and security becomes very, very relevant when you look at modern application architectures and all the things that I talked about when you want to harness capabilities of technology. That's where Cisco and AWS partner together. We have set of services that AWS natively provides related to visibility, cloud native way of finding out security postures, acting on it, and we integrate with the capabilities that Cisco has built in this area to give you an end-to-end solution so that you are able to analyze, get visibility into your environment in a microservices architecture without requiring undifferentiated heavy lifting from you. The second one is security. And usually security, when we think of security, we think about either staying secure or moving fast. That's a trade-off that usually we think of mentally when we think of security. And I think the integration allows you to move fast and stay secure. This is just a snapshot on how you can benefit from this technology. What are some of the consumption models? There are various consumption models of the technology, but the one that I wanted to highlight here was marketplace. So you can consume Cisco's offering and AWS native services from a marketplace, and all these services that perhaps that are there as part of the portfolio, you can just, without getting into cumbersome procurement exercise, you can just use AWS Marketplace and get access to those technologies. That's all. Thanks for your time. I'm going to be around if there are any questions, but back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for a very insightful session. And just to sum up, clearly, moving forward in these times requires a lot of focus on security and also converging it with full stack observability. And as you said, the solutions that you offer at AWS and Cisco together provide a very robust framework. And to shed light on that, we will move on with our next speaker. So in a complex environment that we are currently moving on with, we'd like to invite our next guest for it. As you know, companies are looking at their tech stack, frauds, cyber attacks, sensitive data is also happening. More and more companies have had to deal with this due to the pandemic and even post the pandemic. It is essential to pair cloud migration with robust cutting-edge security solutions like full-stack observability. So on that note, I'd like to call our next guest, Mr. Anand Patil, Senior Director, System Engineering, Cisco, to shed light on the same and also demonstrate in detail how AWS and Cisco solutions actually work. So please welcome Mr. Anand Patil. Please give him a big hand of applause here.
All right, quick mic check. All good? Thank you, Ruchika. It took me a while to walk in through the back of the room here. I love the fact that the room is so full. Either we thought this session wouldn't be so popular, or I don't know what, we didn't plan well. But sorry about this. But thank you so much for being here, and wish you all a very good evening to start with. Right? Let me start with a question. How many of you in the room are AWS customers? Sorry, that was a trick question, just to check whether you're listening or not, okay? Now that you're awake, let me ask the real question. What do you think is the difference between visibility and observability? Sure, go ahead, please.
Visibility means you know an asset or a landscape is there. Observability means you are able to monitor it.
That's good perspective, yes. Any other answers? Please.
Observability is all about like 3 pillars, right? You need to correlate logs, metrics, and traces all in one place. That is observability. Visibility is just logs.
You're close, you're getting warm. All right, I'm going to go back to the definition of visibility. And both the answers are right, okay? Both of you are correct. But technically, visibility does not provide context or does not provide contextual information. So if you take an example of a server, you're monitoring a server, you're getting visibility about the status of the server. Okay? Let's assume you're running an application that is running across multiple servers, or it has components that are hybrid between the cloud and the server. Monitoring alone will not give you the status of what the application is doing or what the health of the application is. That's where visibility comes in. That's where observability comes in. All right, one more question. How many of you are car enthusiasts here? People drive cars, like driving cars? Yeah, great. I mean, I pity you guys staying in Bangalore. You can't enjoy your cars, right? But you know, the cars of today are wonderful, amazing machines. They're cloud connected, of all things. But, I mean, it's just amazing the amount of telemetry that you can get out of a car today. I remember the olden days, and I'm not going to give away my age here, but you know, when I was young, you used to see these Kali Pili taxis broken down by the side of the road and the driver actually peering into the hood trying to figure out what's going on. You don't see that anymore, do you? Why not? It's because of the amount of telemetry that the car has. So even before something goes wrong, what happens? You get a warning on the dashboard, right? Especially if you have one of those LED fancy cars, it'll actually tell you what's going wrong. I mean, it's not just about, is the engine running too hot? Are you running out of oil? And things like that. But now, the car will tell you something's wrong with your ABS. Go get it checked. You can drive, but don't go beyond 60 kilometers an hour. Right? So you can actually take the car to the nearest service station, get it fixed. Wouldn't it be nice to have similar features for your application environment? Saying, oh, hang on, something is going wrong. It might cause a crash, or it might cause some catastrophic failure later on. You have to fix it now. So you have time to take your application to the service station and get that fixed. That's what observability is all about. So let's now try to apply this scenario to an e-commerce company. Okay? Let's assume that you're running an e-commerce company. I know some of you are, B2C. But now you start to notice that sales, your sales, are starting to go down. First of all, how long does it take you to realize that your sales are going down suddenly? Okay, that's the first question. Can you actually see it on a dashboard? Second, what is the reason for the sales going down? There could be a million reasons. Let's assume in this case that it's a technical reason, all right? Just bear with me for a while. So do you know if, customers are actually finding it difficult to find the information they're looking for? That it takes them too many clicks to get to the information they're looking for about a product? Or do you know if a page is taking too long to load, and so customers are quitting before the page loads? Or you realize that people are filling items in their cart but quitting before they pay? And how long before you can troubleshoot that and figure out that it's one of the APIs to your payment gateway that is failing, and therefore they're not able to complete the transaction? Okay? This is all about the application. Now let's extend that a little bit. Okay? Maybe it's not about the application. It's about the infrastructure that you're running it on. How do you figure out that your sales are dropping because certain threads in the application are not being executed because of lack of heap memory on your VM? Now let's complicate this scenario. Maybe it's not the app infrastructure either. And then you start to realize that you're losing sales from a certain geography in India, just a certain region in India, and that too only at certain times in the day. How do you troubleshoot such a scenario? How do you figure out that the real problem is with the service provider in that region that has the maximum number of subscribers on their network, and they don't even know that they're having brownouts in the middle of the day, which is why you're losing customers? Now, the real question is not about whether you'll find the problem, right? Sometime or the other, you'll troubleshoot this. All of us are technical. We'll get down to the bottom of the issue, figure out where the problem is. The question is, How long does it take? And secondly, how do you know what kind of impact it is having on your business metrics? In other words, your car doesn't give you just a lamp saying that your oil is low, but it tells you your oil is low because you have a leak in the pump. So go fix that. So your sales are going low because of an issue that's probably nothing to do with you. But you can now get to figure that out and fix it pretty quickly. That's observability. And now we're talking full stack, not just the application layer. Right? Now let me sort of go to the next topic. Most of you put up your hands when I asked you if you were AWS customers. So you're probably familiar with the shared model of responsibility when it comes to security for the cloud? Yeah? Anybody not familiar with that? Yeah, it's very simple, right? And Apoorv alluded to it earlier. When you're on AWS, essentially AWS says, I'm responsible for all of the infrastructure that I run. And therefore, my responsibility is the security of that infrastructure. However, you as a consumer and a customer of AWS are responsible for the application, the data, and the workload that you're running on top of AWS. Okay? And guess what? Gartner predicts that by the year 2025, 99% of all cloud security breaches would be because of a customer fault. Okay? Which means that this aspect of security on the cloud is pretty critical to be taken care of. So, for example, Apoorv talked about zero trust. Most of us are familiar with zero trust when it comes to user access. How do you implement zero trust in the cloud? First of all, how do you get the visibility to be able to find out what dependencies your application has, which components is it talking to, and lock things down so that nothing else works on those channels? Okay. One more question, right? What is the most exploited vector for attacks, for breaches in the world? Sorry? No. Just the one single largest vector for attacks. And that leads to? Why do you do social engineering? Sorry? Absolutely. And what do humans use to get access? Passwords. Right? Passwords, or humans, are the weakest link in the chain. And that is why you have to now start not only looking at application security, but also user security. So if passwords are so vulnerable, why not get rid of them? Why don't we move to a passwordless environment? Okay? And when you're implementing passwordless, how can you start to control things like content? What kind of sites can they actually access? Without knowing, your employees or your users might be accessing websites that are known to be malicious. But it's human nature, right? You'll click on something because you think it's legitimate, but you don't know what's behind that. How do you protect against that? Right? Those are some of the aspects that you'll have to start thinking about when it comes to security. Okay? And to demonstrate how we as Cisco, along with AWS, solve some of these issues, I'm going to call a couple of my colleagues on stage. So Thuin and Nidhi, if you can come on stage and help me out here.
Thank you everybody for joining in. My name is Tuhin. I'm part of the Cisco App Dynamics. I'm the solution engineer here. So sorry. That's okay. It's okay. Just give me one moment. So I'm going to talk about how Cisco's FSO platform, full stack observability platform, is helping customers gain full visibility into the application performance and how you can integrate to get visibility on the network and internet, and you know, how you can optimize your resources in order to keep an eye on the cost optimization and also keep an eye on the application security, all in a single pane of glass view, right? So what you can see here is an application that is deployed on a data center, which is a legacy application. You know, customers are, they are struggling to get visibility as to what is going wrong and should I or should I not migrate to the cloud. So I'm going to show or demonstrate how we are helping customer in the cloud migration journey, right? So what we are seeing here is a trading platform where we are monitoring all the critical transactions that are part of a user journey, and subsequently we are also monitoring the response time of the critical transactions that is part of a user journey. On the same screen, we're also keeping an eye on the services health that are contributing to this particular user journey. Now, interestingly, there is a transaction which is in red, which means there is some problem. So what we're seeing here are the services that is exactly contributing to the process trade transaction, right? And on the same screen, we can see what is the load, what is the average response time, what is the trend of the number of errors that are happening in my application. Now, you know, the agents that are deployed in the application to monitor these metrics or the telemetry data, it is not only to monitor the performance but also takes care of the threshold, because when it comes to monitoring, the first thing that comes into mind is whether or not will I get a false positive alert or not, right? So in order to mitigate that situation, agent takes care of that by understanding the trend over a period of time, and it sets threshold dynamically for you, right? And while we leverage the dynamic threshold, we see the transaction scorecard. It ranks all the transactions, whether it's slow or very slow. Now, there are many very slow transactions. Now, let me wear the AppOps guy's hat to see what went wrong. How do I identify what went wrong as a transaction anomaly, right? So as I drill down, I can see, I'll just let the system open. So this is the first screen of my RCA. With the potential issues, I can know that where exactly the issue is. However, I want to drill down to exactly find out or narrow down where my exact issue is, right? So let me drill down to every component that is contributing to this particular anomaly. And I can see the complete code visibility of my application. So imagine identifying and getting into this particular last leg of the transaction issue. It might take hours and hours of time for the app ops guy, because there's a lot of team that gets involved. There are a lot of firefighting scenarios that might happen. So with App Dynamics, we can identify where exactly the root cause. However, we can also drill down to the downstream application. All right. So even in the downstream, I know that where exactly the issue is. Even here, I can see what is my code visibility. And in case if there is a database issue, I can know from the same screen that there is a database issue. But in this case, I can keep the DBA aside because that's not the problematic node. However, there is a code which is waiting for the thread to be available. There is an asynchronous call that is happening within the same service, right? So the system is waiting for the CPU to be available. Now this is a VM, right? The system is not able to process the particular transaction. That is why there is a thread wait state. Now you can see the CPU is spiking almost 100%. There is an impact on the memory which is beyond 90%, right? And on the same screen, I can see the network metrics as well. What is my impact on the network of the application where I'm connected to? You can see there is a connection rate info, and there are TCP laws and various network metrics which helps team to identify where exactly the issue is. Now I clearly know that there is some issue with my environment. The CPU is not able to process, the network is not able to withhold the transactions load. So with this sort of data, this is one of the instance, but with this sort of data, a collective decision can be made. The business team, the app ops team, the SecOps team, the DevOps team, everybody can take a collaborative decision whether or not I want to migrate to a cloud environment, right? Now, let's say if we have migrated, do we get visibility on a cloud environment, right? Now, you can see a similar dashboard, right? We are monitoring the environment, the same set of application which is migrated to the AWS cloud. Now we are also able to show the comparison between the data center performance and the AWS performance. And obviously the result is amazing because all the transactions are in green, the response times are too good. So this sort of information is very important when it comes to a cloud migration environment. Now, additionally, if you want to get more information as to what is my user conversion rate, if I migrate completely to the AWS environment, how good is my user conversion rate going to be? What is my response time that is going to be on my AWS platform? So for that, I can have another dashboard visibility, right? Uh, you know, this is a complete application flow which is on the data center, which is on-premise environment. Now you can see there are a lot of reds in the data center environment, right? So let me get into the cloud application, which is AD Financial Cloud, and you can see everything is in green, right? Now the applications, there are AWS Lambda functions that are used. There are multiple PaaS functions, as you can see. All the automated, the components are discovered automatically. You can see Amazon DynamoDB, the S3, everything is automatically discovered. While I also monitor the performance, everything is in green. So this gives me confidence that yes, I need to migrate to the AWS platform where I can get visibility on the cloud environment. Now, Mr. Satinder mentioned about the services that are available on AWS. Imagine you migrate to the AWS cloud and there are various services that you're leveraging for your application to be running up and fine. Imagine having no visibility, right? So with this platform, you can get visibility on all the components that you're hosting on AWS. So this is another dashboard where I was talking about the migration, business data. I can see that the conversion rate on my AWS platform is way better than the on-premise environment. That is 36.57%, which is almost 15% better performance than my on-premise environment. And though my user transacting on my pre-migration environment is less, still my performance on the AWS platform is way better than my on-premise environment. Now, this is how you can get visibility on your application performance while you get visibility on the server, network, database, and also take a collective business decision whether or not you want to migrate it or not. And while you migrate, how do you get the business impact analysis is what this particular flow is. Now, imagine there is another scenario where, like Anand mentioned, that there is a payment gateway, which is also a dependent application, where me being an AppOps guy, I will not have control over it, right? I cannot put agents because that's an third-party application. However, my business is totally dependent on that. So there's always been a firefighting scenario in that scenario, right? So for my orders processing, that payment gateway is very important. That is a critical service. How do I keep an eye on that? For that, there is something called Cisco Thousand Eyes, which is also part of the observability platform, which gives you network and internet visibility, right? Now you can get a contextualized information that my business is getting impacted. The reason behind that is the agents are showing that the response time of the payment gateway is spiking up, right? So as we drill down from the same screen, we can go into the Thousand Eyes screen, which is a seamless integration. As you can see that I'm monitoring that particular payment gateway API, and I can compare this with a normal transaction period behavior and with an anomaly period, right? All right, now I'm clicking on the anomaly detected period, and as you can see, these blue circles are nothing but the ISPs through which the transaction might traverse through. Like Anand mentioned that there are multiple locations from where my users would be accessing my application. So I know that these are the locations from where my potential users are going to be. So I am triggering the transactions from these locations to know proactively where my exact issue is on the internet layer as well. So it is exactly telling me that there is a Oregon data center and the Singapore data center which is causing the latency. There are various hops through which the transaction traverses through, and there are multiple issues that are identified. So with this data, the NetOps guy can go back to the ISP to reroute the traffic so that the end users will get a seamless performance on the cloud environment as well. All right, so let's move into the next use case where also Anand mentioned about the JVM heap utilization can be higher. Now, how do I keep an eye on whether my application is has enough resources to hold to hold the transaction that is coming up, right? So let's say there is a heap utilization alert that is seen from AppDynamics on a particular Java node, which is a logistic node, right? So I can drill down further to see what action that I can take. Should I upgrade or downgrade, or should I move to another instance? Let's see how we can do that with a solution called Cisco Intersight, which is a workload optimizing solution that is part of the full stack observability. Now we are monitoring the same AD financial application, and you can see the complete supply chain from the Intersight tool. And you can see that the tool is suggesting that we need to upscale the heap utilization so that from right now the utilization is 88.5. However, if you upscale it to 622 MB, the utilization of the heap is going to be 70.4%. Now you can also let the infrastructure team to let this solution to upscale it automatically. So this is also it's going to optimize the resource utilization accordingly, and you need not have to wait till somebody comes in, looks at the event, and then upscale or downscale, because the business is going to be impacted. Now let me walk you through another use case where we always monitor the application, but we might overlook the security of the application, right? So I'm going to look at a particular event where I see that there is a high load that is seen, right? So there is a load to high event that is observed from Cisco AppDynamics. Now this is on the calls per minute, and the inventory admin is the node where my load is seen higher, right? So this is an anomaly detected during an unexpected time frame. Now let me show you what that exact event is and how do we delve with that particular event, right? So you can see that there is a unexpected load on the trend. So let me check the exact dashboard which I have created, and the event says that there is a new business transaction that is identified. Now me being an AppOps guy, I will look into this event. I'll be worried, because I know I was talking to the DevOps guy the last day, and I know that there is no new feature or functionality that is added. Now this is something which is concerning for the AppOps guy. Now what I can do, I need not have to wait for the SecOps guy or the DevOps guy to come in. I can just look into the same dashboard and see what went wrong, due to which there is a new transaction that is identified, right? So from the same screen, I can get into the security health, which tells me there are 7 critical alerts, and you can see we are monitoring the attacks and the vulnerabilities that is part of that application. And you can see it's the same code services on the same application, which says this is the transaction which is identified. Now interestingly, this Cisco secure application is not only going to scan the vulnerabilities or the attacks, but it also lets you block that particular attack before it gets exploited. However, in this case, you can see that this is a blocked state, right? This is the automation that we provide with Cisco secure application. Now we can also monitor the vulnerabilities that is. Yes. Yes. So it's based on the, it is actually a runtime app self protection. So we are connected to the CV, the database of the CVs where it is stored. Sorry? No. So I will have to check on that, but we are actually connected to the database which stores all the CVEs, the standard CVEs, right? So we scan it, we do a pattern check with that particular database, whether it is a known vulnerability or the attack. Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry. No, so it is the same agent that we are using for monitoring. It's the same agent that will scan your vulnerabilities as well and the attacks. And to answer your question, sir, yes, even if it's a static code, then we can scan it. Right? I mean, the last part is, as you can see, there are vulnerabilities. It also scans what all libraries that are being used for this particular application, whether it is a vulnerable version or not. And it also give you the recommendation or the remediation recommendation, whether you want to upscale or downscale the version of the library. Now, with this, my demo is complete, so I hope it was informative. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nidhi Kejriwal and I work as a security architect for Cisco. So today we'll be talking about three major products in terms of security. We talked about zero trust, right? Anand spoke about zero trust, how we can move from password to a passwordless authentication, and what is the minimum level of access that we can give to a user. So first talking about that particular use case, I'll be showcasing the Duo demo for you. Okay, so in this case, what we are trying to do is we'll be featuring three different use cases. First of all, you can see that a user is trying to log in into the corporate network. So he signs in, and then instead of going for a single authentication, we have multi-factor authentication, which can be in the form of a Duo push, or it can also be in the form of a passcode. Okay, and just to make one thing here is that this integration is not just possible with mobile. You can do it with your Apple phone, you can do it with your email, you can do it with your Apple Watch, anything of that sort, a biometric as well. Okay, so yeah, continuing on this, once that authentication is done, that's when the user logs in successfully. Now, the second option which we are talking about is the Duo push, wherein there is no specific token that you have to put in. It's just a push, or it's just a confirmation which comes to your integrated device, and you have to approve that integration, approve that request, and then you are able to log into your corporate network. Second feature or the second use case which we will be talking about is going to be your passwordless authentication. Okay, yeah, so if you can see here, it's like a Windows Hello login wherein we are using a biometric. So once your fingerprint is attached on the computer or on the phone, the user can log in directly to your corporate network without the need of putting in your passwords. And we also support single sign-on along with it, which means the other corresponding applications would be opened depending upon your first biometric itself. Okay, so yeah, you can see here we directly got into the application without the need of getting into the passwords. And the third thing which I'll be talking about is the device health check. So Duo does not just talk about multi-factor authentication or passwordless authentication. We can also do a device health check. That means the basic level of configurations or the basic firewall defender mechanism, everything needs to be activated. The compliance has to be followed. Only then the application visibility or the application accessibility is allowed. So if you see here, a user trying to log in into the corporate network goes through the Duo application wherein we find that the firewall is not enabled. So Duo will give you the entire steps on how to activate that particular configuration so that your device is compliant with the network policies, and then you are able to log into your corporate network. So yeah, we refresh the page, and then we are able to sign in. So again, the Duo push is specifically for multi-factor authentication, and then we are able to log in. So that was from the Duo side, basically zero trust or passwordless authentication. Next, I will be talking about Umbrella. So, Umbrella is a cloud dashboard product wherein it is completely cloud based. We have an integration with AWS as well, wherein you can do the first level of DNS protection. So, I'll show you how things look like. If you see here, I am actually using a SSO login, which is through my Duo. So I get a Duo push on my phone, and that's where I log in. So with Umbrella, we also have managed services option. You can go for a single standalone account. You can also go for a managed services provider. Now here on the Umbrella dashboard, I have created a policy, basic DNS policy, wherein I'm trying to block, let's say Amazon, the e-commerce website. So what I do is I create a DNS policy here. And if I go back and type in, so you can see that this particular site is blocked by Umbrella. Now this particular dashboard can actually be changed. You can customize this particular page as per your liking if you want to make it in a different way. And we can also see which particular website is getting blocked, and it's not just a privacy error or anything. You specifically get the option that Umbrella has done this. Okay, now Umbrella is not just limited to the first level of DNS security itself. We also have Umbrella SIG, wherein we provide application level control, we provide URL filtering, SSL inspection, and application cloud delivered firewall, meaning everything on the network firewall is done on the cloud itself by Umbrella. So that was on the Umbrella piece. Third, I'll talk about workload, which is actually a microsegmentation, multi-access microsegmentation network option. So Anand was referring to what is the difference between observability and context, right? So this is where you get the context of everything. Why is my network looking like this? What are the things that I need to block? What are the things I need to allow on my network so that my network looks more secure? That we will be seeing through workload. So I'll just open this up. Okay, so basically okay, so this is the security dashboard on the workload. This will actually show you your overall score, which is your network score. So right now you can see that the network score is B, which means it can be modified and you can make your network more secure, making it A or A+. So why is the network score low, or where exactly can I modify things wherein I can increase my network score? So this is the score breakdown, wherein you see that it is segregated into 6 different options: vulnerability score, process hash score, attack surface score, etc. So you can see that my vulnerability score is very less. If this increases, that means I am able to detect and track everything in terms of the vulnerability on my network, right? My process hash score is a good one. Attack surface score is very low. This possibly means that there are a lot of ports or protocols which are open in your network. You have not been using them, and still it is open, which is a possibility for the attacker to use it and attack on your network, right? So all those things can actually be seen here. If you come here, you can see the attack surface details, how things look like. So these are the port numbers which have been opened, not associated with any of the protocols, and have not been used over the past 2 or more weeks. Similarly, if I talk about the vulnerability score, let's say this is my workload. So what are the multiple vulnerabilities which is associated with this particular workload? You can see a list of all of them, and then you can actually go to that particular vulnerability, the CV, and you will find out what are the remediation options for it. So everything across your network can be monitored and at the same time modified to make your network secure in terms of how things look like across your entire network. So I am okay to take any questions, not getting into too much technical details. Yeah.
So on the authentication part,
Correct.
whether the device was authentication or only posture validation.
So you can go for both the options on Duo. You can go for device authentication also. And along with device authentication, we do a posture assessment of the device as well.
So in the posture as operate agent, or I can just randomly put a agent also, like a demo agent.
So this particular agent will actually capture everything in terms of your operating system, in terms of the antivirus which is there, in terms of the location from where the device is getting accessed, everything. So the telemetry data comes, the 100% telemetry data from the user or the device perspective is something which you can configure and see on the dashboard of Duo.
So the next is the network level. You said location telemetry is also coming. So the network level basis authentication or the conditional access is also coming in along with this. Means if it's from the allowed segment of network segment, a particular access, and if it's not from that, then a different kind of an access.
Yes, that is also possible.
So all the three layers are possible.
Yes, we can do that. Yes.
So is this the dashboard? Is it covers the all the landscape, all the endpoints, all the different type of endpoints, servers, and everything into the dashboard, like XDR or XDRR?
Yes, so basically you don't have to go for any physical appliance. Whatever integrations will happen, everything will be happening on the cloud itself. The manageability is over a single dashboard. No need to go for a hardware appliance and install something on the box.
So how it give, how it explains that XDR capability, extended discovery and response and recovery.
Okay, so we have something known as SecureX, okay, which is again a cloud-based platform wherein you can feed all the data from Duo and feed it into SecureX from Duo, and therein you will be able to see all the XDR capabilities as well. That particular section will be taken care by SecureX. And to add on to what you said, SecureX is not just limited to integration with Cisco products. We have integrations possible from third-party vendors also. Yes, sir.
So what are the kind of the reports you can see, right? Say CISO perspective, right? Kind of the KPIs and usage, kind of the reports which can be generated. Say for example, I want to see what are the kind, which are the vulnerabilities has encountered the monthly basis, or like the quarterly basis. These are exact of the applications of different layers. That kind of reports possible to generate.
Yes, so let's say that in terms of on a CISO level, you do not want this integration to happen on the cloud, right? So in that case, whatever is the external data which you have from the CISO's computer, you can feed that data directly into the workload, and then workload will analyze those data and give you all the possible vulnerabilities or how things looked when the accessibility was done in terms of your network visibility. That is possible.
So month by month basis, I can see like different metrics.
You can see it on a month by month basis, on a day by day basis as well.
I think that's all that we have the time for. Really sorry. I know you have more questions, but Nidhi and Tuin will be both available when we break for dinner. Did you think these guys did a good job? Yeah? Thank you. Only thing, Nidhi, next time we probably don't block Amazon.in. We
Exactly.
some other site. Maybe Flipkart, yeah? Okay. All right. Okay. So thank you so much for patiently listening and paying attention. I hope this was interesting. Here's the good news. All of the stuff that you just saw, all the capabilities that you just saw are available for you to use today on the AWS marketplace. And they can be used and burned out as a part of your AWS contract. All right. So we'll be here for the rest of the evening. Please come down, talk to us. Any questions that you might have, happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. That was a very engaging and meaningful discussion. And I especially like Mr. Anand's analogy about the cars, and also the presentation given by your team was very insightful and very detailed. Well, we've heard the experts, and one fact that has emerged is the need for converging security with full stack observability to be agile and future ready. Our next session is a roundtable discussion that will turn the spotlight on how a unified approach to full stack observability and security can pave the way for faster growth and agility for DNBs and ITES enterprises. On that note, I would now like to invite our esteemed panelists to join us on stage. I'd like to invite Mr. Satinder Singh, Head Solution Architects India, DNB AWS. Mr. Anand Patil, Senior Director, Systems Engineering, Cisco. Mr. Kiran Kumar, VP Engineering, Misho, and Mr. Naseem Haldar, Chief Information Security Officer at ACO General Insurance. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us today. Unified approach. So my first question to all of you, and I'd like to start with you, Mr. Naseem, is that as we go forward, what are the major trends that you've been seeing in the observability and security space? What are the things that you would like to point out to our audience here?
Sir, it's actually changed a lot, right? Earlier, I think if we go back 5 years ago, we talk about digitalization, we talk about how we can make our business digitalized. Now, I would say it's not an option anymore, right? I think if we go back 2, 3 years ago, or might be before COVID, there was a question, hey, you should go to cloud or not to cloud. Now there is no question that you should look for that option as well, right? I would say most of the companies either fully on cloud or in a hybrid mode people are using, right? So observability, security, it's no more an option. I would say it's a feature of your product or feature of your business. If you don't have, you will not able to run, you will not able to scale, you will not able to maximize your business opportunity. So that's the current trend is going on, and it will go in that more when we are moving out from this on premises setup, move out from monolithic setup to more microservices. It's no more an option. You have you should have, or you will face your business losses over there.
Sure, thank you for that. Coming to you, Mr. Anand, you shared some very interesting insights, but I recently read a report about how observability is no longer just a buzzword. And earlier technologists were actually a little apprehensive about it, but now more and more of them are getting very gung-ho, they are very optimistic, and they really feel that it will contribute to a transformational experience. So what are the top trends according to you in the space?
So maybe I'll talk about that using an example, right? Most of you're probably familiar with Tata Neu, yeah, the app, and so when you know what Tata Neu is, it's actually a front end. It's a front end of all of the retail assets that Tata has, and there are tons of them. Think about Tanishq, AirAsia, Vistara, their Big Basket, 1MG, all the new acquisitions, everything front-ended by the Tata Neu app. So, I mean, each of these retail assets, I think there's 30 of them or so. So, each of these retail assets actually has their own IT. So, CRM systems, inventory management, order management, all of those are different IT systems. And to be able to build a front end for all of these diverse systems, they had to build an app that was, pretty incredibly complex. So they had over 1,000 microservices and 7 or 8 layers in that app. And to be able to keep track of all of the dependencies during the actual development of the app, they leveraged App Dynamics. So they were able to actually gain a lot more visibility than they would have if they didn't have tools like that. I think the second thing that they also did, because this is primarily a B2C app, what they did was they wanted to make sure that the access to the app and the performance of the app, multiple different menu options, all of those are working fine, and they wanted to do that from multiple different cities in India. So they put 1,000 eyes agents across multiple different locations, across broadband, 3G, 4G, what have you, right? And from there, they were actually able to do synthetic monitoring of the app and how it performed before they actually went and launched it. So I think To answer your question, Rujika, I think the ability to get deeper insights into what was hitherto not available, to both developers as well as post facto when you go into production, how can you actually get to the root cause of the issue, like we saw in the demo, is something that is becoming critically important in this day where you're already going to the cloud for agility, but what about your operations? How can you make them agile?
All right, Mr. Satinder, what would you like to share here? Your insights on, if just I had to ask you to sum up the top 3 trends right now in this space.
I think fundamentally, if you look at cloud and look at security per se, there are 3 things that cloud will bring to you. The first one is this whole thing that we were talking about, shared responsibility model. Now, if we dive a little deeper into that, what does that mean? That cloud has built and provides set of compliance out of box for you, which means that we have built a global infrastructure that is compliant to some of the local regulations, global regulations, best practices of security standards, and you inherit that without getting into undifferentiated heavy lifting of building it on your own. That's a fundamental thing. The second thing that comes to my mind is the whole visibility part. And we talked through my talk also, I was kind of alluding to that. Cloud native architecture and the instrumentation that is there gives you a very, very deep visibility and insights, which is extremely hard to instrument otherwise. And the third thing that happens as an impact of that is the whole automation, wherein you're able to react to security incidents in real time. Let me give you an example. Let me pick a digital native customer. I mean, there are many. I would have liked to pick Misho, but I think Kiran is better equipped to talk about that. But let me pick, let's say, Dream11. So we all, Dream11 is a fantasy gaming company. They are subjected to, and specifically when there is a contest join and there is a popular match, they get a lot of security attacks which are targeted. And they built an automation framework. In fact, if you're keen, just go, and they're publicly blogged about it as well. I'll not get into too much details, but let me just give you a simplistic view of that. When an IP is reaching out and doing multiple calls, improper calls, let me use that term, to their API gateway, the API gateway generates a log in an asynchronous fashion. A Lambda function picks up that information and sees if this is a repetitive pattern or not. If it finds a repetitive pattern, it will go and update web application firewall directly, create a rule to block that IP. That's the level of automation. And I think in security, response is critical. So that's the kind of things that cloud can bring.
Sure. Thank you for those insights. Then coming to you, sure.
One
You'd like to add
point
something?
I just want to add to Mr. Singh, whatever he told is perfectly right. So, to add this point, if I take example of, Mr. Patil example, right, he has given a great car analogy, right? If you get that, details before time, you can solve it. Now, the same insight can help you to build a business as well. Let's say if I got that data, that which car is, going to have some issue, and how quickly the issue has been solved. Being an insurance company, it will be very easy for me to underwrite the risk. I can say, okay, this customer is superb. He is having a problem. He's fixing within 10-15 minutes. I
Sure.
can write that insurance, right? So that is one more way to see that insight.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Coming to you, Mr. Karan, you've achieved some, stupendous growth in the past quarter. In fact, this March, on an average daily basis, you've received 3.5 the number of orders that you received last year. And you've been leveraging new age technologies for that. So what is your key learning here?
So, okay, for those of you who don't know what is Meesho, right? Meesho is an e-commerce marketplace focused more on Tier 3, Tier 4 cities, connecting all the suppliers from Tier 3, Tier 4 and villages with the customers coming from Tier 3, Tier 4, right? We have seen kind of 100x growth in last 18 months in terms of data volumes or any other metric you pick, right? So recently we ran a Diwali sale where we did 8.7 million orders in a day. That's I think highest in India, right? So to operate at this scale, especially during sales, right, when we do one-day sale events where suddenly our order volumes go up by 5x, 10x, we don't know where it will land, right? So you need to have cutting-edge technologies deployed for having that end-to-end observability. What I meant by that is like starting from the time a customer comes and starts looking for the selection on the app and till the time he places the order and we fulfill the order. Every leg of the order, we need to make sure that within the stipulated time we are able to meet the expectation of the customer. Be it expectation on the app in terms of user experience, expectation on in terms of delivering the product on time, everything, right? So especially given our kind of growth, there will be bad actors always looking to basically do dosing on our system, especially on a sale day, right?
Sure.
We on an average we receive a lot of dosing even on regular days, but sale days it goes up, right? As Satinder mentioned, right, Dream 11 does something, right? We have done something similar where we look at the patterns of our regular usage and all our sale day usages because there the peaks will be little different, and any anomaly we detect in real time. When I say real time, we hardly have few milliseconds to detect it. Otherwise, we lose few million orders here and there, right? So identifying that in real time and quickly going and updating your web application firewall rule so that you don't, and at the same time, don't impact any legitimate usage on your app. That is also important, right? Sometimes during sale, what can happen is like morning 8 a.m. everyone is reading a newspaper. Suddenly they see a Misho ad. So people who don't even know Misho might go and start surfing Misho or installing the Misho app. It could be a legitimate usage, right? How do you identify the legitimate usage versus the dosing which is coming from bad actors in real time and quickly stop it is where a lot of effort goes in and a lot of tech AI/ML we put in there, right? And another major thing in terms of observability, right? So everyone talked about infra observability, talked about application observability, right? Another major piece we focus from day one is the data observability. Because for all of this to work properly, you need to have proper, basically on our network, any given time, we collect billions of events, right? So when you collect such humongous amount of data, any anomalies in that data, you need to quickly identify because a lot of decisions are made based on the data. Where if you, it's a junk in, junk out problem, right? If you get a lot of junk data into your system, you basically end up making very bad choices or bad decisions, and that will impact your business directly, indirectly, right? So data observability, at least in last 12 to 18 months, have picked up pretty fast, and a lot of newest companies we started building solutions, and even we build a lot of in-house solutions to basically uh, identify those anomalies and quickly stop them before they become an issue for us.
Definitely. And maintaining a strong security posture, as you mentioned, is very, very critical. Coming to you, Mr. Naseem, as a completely digital native insurance provider, could you take us through how smooth or challenging your cloud journey has been? Because last year you also emerged as a unicorn after raising funds of, $255 million. So what was cloud's role in actually helping you achieve this milestone? And if you could take us through your key learnings here.
Uh, sure. So I would say our cloud journey is a little different. We are not somebody who has migrated to cloud. We are someone who born in cloud.
Yes, digital natives,
So
yes.
our journey is, we started on cloud journey when nobody's there. I believe when we go and present our posture to our regulator, there was a question that why you are in cloud. We have to convince them. So that was the our starting point in cloud. And I believe, especially if we take example of our just 2 years back, if we take example of the COVID one, right? I believe a lot of business affected a lot. They are out of business for 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, couple of business more than a month as well, right? If we take example of Echo, I think we took hardly 15 minutes. We take a call that from next day onward we'll work from home. So that's the it's advantage if you are in cloud. So at the same time, when we with this every all of we are hit on the COVID side, then we have seen that auto, motor, all this insurance is going down. At the same time, we have seen a tremendous high insurance volume in that health side. So that managing that volume without that your full stack infra support is quite, I would say, not possible. So that is that, learning, or that is that, key takeaway for us, where we become a unicorn within few years, I believe 2, 3, 5 years max.
That's wonderful. That's a great achievement there. But coming to you, Mr. Anand, given the dynamic nature of DNBs and the ITS industry, and the fact that they constantly have to deal with changing customer expectations, so do you think working with a conventional security approach can actually address the gap? And why do you think it fails?
So look, I think if you think about what's happened over the last 24 months or so, I mean, we've all gone through this entire cycle, right? Maybe a lot of the people in this room were fairly immune to the shift to work from home because you were already on the cloud. But for a lot of companies which were legacy and not yet on the cloud, it was a terrible journey. So when we actually went through it, so we as technology providers work with almost all large enterprise companies, and we played a very pivotal role in terms of enabling things like VPN connections, headends in the cloud, giving access, enabling device security, all kinds of stuff. A lot of it for free because that was the time that they wanted to scale and quickly move to the hybrid world, right? So I think that was a big realization of what is the value of the cloud. And I think to be able to think about the cloud as something that enables work from home is probably not a very novel concept, but it's definitely an enabler, right? And therefore, if you think about all architectures, enterprise architectures, how they evolved over the last 2 years, it's an N by N or N cross N problem, where on one side, you've got this explosion of application infrastructure. You're on-prem, you're on cloud, you're on multiple clouds sometimes. And on the other side, you have your employees who are working from home, working from the coffee shop, working from the car, sometimes from the office as well, right? So how do you protect in this environment? So you cannot depend upon legacy. There's no concept of a perimeter. The concept of a perimeter has shrunk down to the level of a user, identity and device. Now we've got IoT as well. So how do you define security for an IoT device that could be connected over the internet, for example? So the concept of legacy security has completely been disrupted, and therefore we have to start thinking about this. And a lot of the folks in this room probably are already thinking about it, but overall, we've seen a huge uptake in terms of things like Duo, things like secure workload on the cloud, and passwordless, VPN-less is becoming pretty much the norm.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. And definitely, it's no longer work from home. It is work from anywhere pretty much for everyone. But coming to you, Mr. Satinder, with so many digital native businesses working in a hybrid cloud environment, how does one really ensure that they can scale and stay nimble without compromising on their security postures?
I think fundamentally we have published kind of tenets on what a secure environment in cloud looks like. And I'm going to refer to that. This tenets have been authored by CISO of AWS, who's now the CISO for Amazon. And he makes 4 observations. He says the first one is to the point that he was talking about, lean in with auditors and compliance. I think the more trust that you build, depending on the regulated nature of the business that you're doing, it just makes the job easy. So lean in there. That's the first one. The second one is the classic defense in depth approach. It's a wholesome equation. Alert, prevent, detect, respond, all of them are critical, right? And you need to build in right kind of technologies so that your security posture is optimal. The third one, and I'll repeat this, automation. I think if you're not able to automate, you're not leveraging the programmatic infrastructure of cloud. That's a wasted opportunity. Okay. The fourth one that I will talk about is leveraging machine learning increasingly for security functions. I can give you an example, and there was a question on dynamic code analysis and static code analysis, and I think there was a question from audience. Look, when you look at platform approach, you need set of cloud native abilities, and we integrate with Cisco's framework fairly deeply. And one of the critical components there is is a machine learning capability called Code Guru. Now, what Code Guru does is basically it applies machine learning to find out security vulnerabilities, dynamic code analysis in real time. An example of that is Atlassian. They, in fact, have blogged about it as well. I mean, the kind of profiling that they used to do, and after implementing Code Guru, the kind of benefits that they've accrued. I think these are the top four that I'll say, which is dealing with the scale. So you need to have, as I mentioned earlier also, an ability using cloud native technologies and partners like Cisco to stay secure and move fast.
Definitely. Companies do require a very robust framework and partners to navigate through this framework. But I'd like to come back to you, Mr. Kiran. Full stack observability is no longer a buzzword. It has been a game changer. So could you share your experience on how having end-to-end visibility actually helped you manage your system better and accelerated your performance?
Okay, so when we started our journey a few years back, right? So we also have, like anyone else, multiple siloed observability stacks, right? So reason behind that, we followed microservices architecture. Naturally, everyone was free to use whatever they want, even for monitoring and observability. But over period, what we realize is, like, whenever something breaks, right, that is where observability helps you, right? Where you have information residing in 10 different systems and you have to go and dig deeper, and by the time you connect all the dots, you already lost the opportunity, right? That is where we invested a lot in last 18 months in terms of rebuilding our observability stack and making it as a central unit where we collect all the information. Even though you might be using it in a microservice level, you're free to use whatever you want, but end of the day, you have to push those summaries back to the central system where you have end-to-end visibility available to everyone in the company, not only for engineers, analysts or business managers, to look at what's going on, right, with the funnel. Right? For example, in our business, any drop anywhere, for example, someone mentioned in the talk, right, if a lot of orders are coming until checkout and dropping, there could be only two reasons. One is either the payments are not going through, or maybe something else is going bad there, or app is not functioning as expected, right? So identifying those things or funnel drops end to end requires you tap into thousands of microservices and collecting all the information back and correlating what is going on at starting of the funnel till the end, right? That is where identification is very easy problem in my opinion, because identifying that this is where it's dropping, even your users will tell on Twitter, saying, oh, Misha orders are not going through or something like that. But once you identify, how do you quickly rectify it? By identifying the root cause. The identifying the RCA and doing the RCA is a major pain point. That is where the desperate systems are not allowing us to do it, because we have to engage 10 different engineers from 10 different pods, going and pulling information and doing a lot of analysis. But now we have automated everything in such a way that, okay, when we know what is going on, and we don't even care where the issue is, because system itself will tell that this is where the issue is. And once we know, we have the ability to go deeper into the log levels and identify, okay, this particular sub-service or a microservice is causing this, or this. And naturally, as a cloud native business, we integrate with a lot of ISVs, a lot of cloud partners, right? So it could be an issue with an ISV also. It could be an issue with a payment gateway, right? Identifying those endpoints, which API is causing this, and quickly going and talking to them or falling back to a backup quickly, so that you don't lose any more orders, is what we were able to achieve by implementing end-to-end observability, right? That helped a lot during sales, to be honest, because sales is where the orders go, as I mentioned, at 4x, 5x. Even if I lose, let's say, critical hours, say, as I mentioned, evening 8 to 9, when everyone is back home and ordering, millions of orders come in that 1 hour. So, but if that 1 hour is something breaks, that we will lose what almost 20-25% of the orders, so which we can't afford, to be honest, right? It's a big business loss for us. That is where investing proactively in some of these observability stacks and making sure that you proactively identify these anomalies even before they become catastrophic for us, and go and fix them and have at least a plan B, so that you don't lose your business, right? So that is what we were able to achieve and sustain through all these peaks in last
Great,
18 months.
great. Very interesting learnings, as you said. Always have a plan B and also address such concerns in real time. So, building on what Mr. Kiran said, and coming to you, Mr. Naseem, the modern customer wants insurance products to be as seamless as possible. And of course, they want heightened digital experiences. So, could you share your inputs here? How important is it to address and detect anomalies and vulnerabilities across a product lifecycle to ensure this?
Sure. Let me take, the flip side, whatever, Kiran has told, right? They have some specific time period where the sale might be very high. Now, the flip side of the same business, if you see, Miso, the another side, and Acco in the different side.
Yes.
Acco is insurance business where, might be there is no sale. People can come anytime, anywhere, and they will want to buy. And observability is something, I would say this is something for us where we can able to give a wow factor to my customer. If I talk about my customer experience, if I talk about my customer journey, it should be that wow factor. How this will provide, even it's night 2 o'clock, night 3 o'clock, I need not worry. If my customer wants to buy the insurance at that time, there are cases, I'm sure all of we have experience. There are some policemen, just I think standing before 100 meters, and we realize that our insurance policy has been expired, so we have to buy it. So that is the time period, and I have to be available at that time, so my customer should buy that. So that is the train, that is the journey, got it from this kind of services.
Great. And how do you think it compares or addresses the gap that you were facing with traditional monitoring tools?
See, if I take example of Echo, I feel I have not experienced anything. The reason is that we born in cloud, we have not faced all these things. But yes, if I take my Tata Sons experience, yes, that is a lot. Like Tata knew, he has discussed a lot, right? I was part of that project, and I know how difficult that is. How much discussion you need to have. Everybody need to be in the same platform. Everybody needs to provide similar kind of data, similar kind of input stage, similar kind of output, your push API, it's all together different. I would say, all together different Pandora's box. If you open it, it will be huge discussion.
Definitely. So coming back to you, Mr. Anand, full stack observability, of course, is very essential for a truly holistic picture of system performance and health. So could you take us through the products that you have in your full stack observability portfolios, and how do you think DNBs and the ITES sector can actually leverage it to scale faster?
So I think the products have pretty much been through in terms of capability, right? We had App Dynamics, we had Thousand Eyes, we had Intersight, which makes up the stack, and now they're integrated into a single dashboard, so you can basically click through and get to each one of them and their capabilities. So you can actually do the drill down from a business metric down to where the actual issue is. Could be on the network, could be in the infrastructure, could be in the app. An interesting example of this is I tend to think that the biggest value you get out of full stack observability is the fact that you can start from a business metric and go down to the root cause, to much what like what Kiran said. But this is one of India's leading airlines, okay? And the carts that they get where they sell the sandwiches and the chips and nuts and everything. What this airline actually did was leveraged full stack observability to track the sales of what was being sold in the cart during the flight, so that when the plane landed, they quickly had an idea of what needed to be restocked. Okay, that's a very different example of how they leveraged full stack observability to do that. So they wouldn't be able to do that unless they had deep insights into the app and being able to map all of the functions in the app with business metrics. So I think that is a critical part of it.
Definitely. And Mr. Singh, I'd like to get you in here. Of course, there was DevOps and now there's SecDevOps. So do you think building the SecDevOps culture can actually enable digital native businesses to navigate the current environments better? And how essential is it to converge the two, security and observability as we go along in the future?
Look, I would say it's almost, I won't even say it's important. It is
non-negotiable.
Yeah, it's non-negotiable. Maybe it's ground stake, right? So the fundamental reason why I say that is, let me go back to the Amazon example. I talked about 11 hours to do a deployment. Today, Amazon, roughly on an average, yearly does 60 million deployments. 60 million. Meesho maybe I mean, the same scale, right? And I'm sure ACO would be similar scale. I mean, imagine if you're doing 60 million deployments plus, you can't be moving an unsecure code and then going back because the code quality was not appropriate or there were security issues. So integrating security into DevOps is almost as essential as doing fast deployments. And which means that all the concepts that are associated with security, whether it's people, processes, or technology, needs to be integrated. And DevSecOps or SecDevOps becomes a very, very important enabler.
Definitely. People, process, and technology need to be at the core of every decision. I'd like to bring you in, Mr. Kiran. What are the challenges that you feel digital native businesses might face while taking this route and while adopting observability for a stronger cloud security posture? And what were the possible solutions that you adopted?
Yeah, one solution I can talk about is like as Satinder mentioned, right? So SecDevOps or DevSecOps, whatever we're calling it, is no longer an option. I think those two functions already merged in a lot of new age companies. At least in case of Misho, we don't differentiate them very much. And on top of it, what we call internally is shift left security. That's what we implemented, which is nothing but don't stop implementing your security at a DevOps phase or at the fag end of HDLC. Right? In the traditionally, you write code, you design, write, and test the code, and once you go for release, you go to security team to just get some checkboxes ticked. Right? Even if they don't take one or two checkboxes, you say, okay, I will fix it in next release, and you push it. That is a lot of security vulnerabilities got into production. Right? But we take a harsh stand on this. So what we do is like we embedded security architects and security engineers from the starting of the any new feature development. Like say during design phase itself, they get involved. Security architect will be there with the dev architect, and they identify any potential security vulnerabilities which could play. Let's say they're trying to use a open source library for whatever reason. Right? You might point out, say, if this version of open source library if you use, it might have some vulnerability. We might get exposed to that, right? So reducing that attack surface itself at the inception phase of any feature or a project is what we basically leverage our security engineers for. And during coding also, again, we have a ritual where security, there are some tools our security engineering team uses to basically identify doing the dynamic code analysis or static code analysis to identify any security bugs or any library which is getting into your build, which could have security threat again, right? So identifying it proactively before we push the code into production and telling the developer. So this, what essentially it does is like, on paper it looks like, okay, it's too much of work for someone to do, but if you look back in the past, at the fag end of the SDLC cycle, if you do it, and if you really don't qualify to be production, you'll lose another 2-3 weeks to deploy it again, right? You have to go back, developers have to rewrite the code and again go through the same process. But by embedding security from day one, right, from design, implementation, and testing, you can basically shorten that cycle. And the, within the dev cycle itself, you are identifying all the issues. By the time it comes to security checklisting, 9 out of 10 times everything passes and you push the code to production in a secured way. So without compromising on your agility, you are still pushing secured code to production. That is what you are able to successfully implement, and that's one change which definitely helped us.
All right, thank you for sharing that. And clearly, as you mentioned, the benefits of converging security with observability outweigh the challenges. But I'd like to get your insight here, Mr. Naseem. What are the kind of features that you would look for while choosing a full stack observability portfolio?
I would say being a customer, feature list will be too long, and I hope that
You could
pain
just
is
say app
solved.
dynamics and
Yeah,
be done.
yeah. Feature there, list will be too long. But I would say, nowadays, all of we talk about a lot on the security side. What we feel that security is not, it's no more a enabler service. It's become a feature of your product. It's become a feature of your service. Whatever is, you are providing. You are providing a, you are providing a security product to me. There will be a question asked to you how you are securing your product that you are going to deploy in my environment, right? So that is the current trend. And in terms of I'd say there are a lot of things we can do now. I think some of my friends talk about that, SaaS, DAST, Now people in that, there are a lot of companies who are integrating their CI/CD pipeline with their DevSecOps tools, so that there should not be any more manual intervention to to secure the code, to have a review. It will help you to speed up your complete deployment. So there are a lot of requirement, I would say. It's very difficult for me, tell you a couple of requirement. Might be whatever requirement I'm going to, talk about. It's more about my own infra. So it's might be not going to help a lot of people.
No, but it does definitely help us. Thank you so much for sharing all that you shared. But coming back to you, Mr. Anand, you talked about collaboration in great detail. So could you take our audience through how customers are actually leveraging your full stack observability products to actually enhance collaboration across various teams?
Yeah, I think the example that Kiran talked about was a couple of questions back was very pertinent, right? And the way that they're able to collapse the app ops, DevOps, SecOps teams, NetOps teams, sorry, to be able to get a single visibility and drill down to where the actual issue lies. For far too long, I've seen this personally, being in the middle of escalations where something has gone down and everybody's pointing the finger at each other because they say, my system is clean, it must be something in the network. Network guys is saying, no, I'm fine, it must be something with the database or something like that. So I think that's the biggest advantage that I see in terms of implementing full stack observability, is that we get everybody on the same page as to what the actual issue lies, where the actual issue lies.
All right. Thank you so much for this discussion. But just before we wrap up, one quick closing comment from all of you. It is that what does the road ahead look like? So starting with you, Mr. Singh.
I think to my mind, there are multiple aspects. The biggest one that I'll put is actually three. The first one is defense in depth. I think it's very, very important that you look at detective controls, preventive controls, data security controls, and bring in visibility. There's no better way to explain it the way a customer explained it to me. And he was talking about microservices proliferation. And he says, the challenge that I have, and relating it to customer experience, and he says, it's a needle in a haystack problem. The challenge is the haystack is becoming bigger and the needle is becoming more precious. Right? So I think that's the fundamental thing. The second one that I'll reiterate is need for automation. And the third one is proliferate machine learning. And that can really solve some of the challenges that you have, not only from code analysis, but also in terms of forensic. We haven't talked about that. But I think implementing machine learning is going to be, you'll be surprised at the capabilities of that. And that continues to evolve.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Anand, your closing comments.
So I think I couldn't have put it more succinctly than Satyendra, that I completely agree with his top three. But let me also put in one more, which is you can't protect what you can't see. So that's how observability and security go hand in hand. All right. So unless you get visibility and observability into what you're running and how it's running, you will not be able to protect it. Which is why, so if you saw the demo that Nidhi did, for example, we were able to see the flows. Now, unless you are able to see the flows, how will you implement zero trust? So this is just in addition to what Satyendra said.
Thank you for that. Mr. Kiran, your closing comments. And what does the road ahead look like to you?
So one of the things in case of observability is basically one big challenge right now for a lot of companies like us. Like most of us are talking about multi-cloud, moving to multiple clouds, right? But if you look at the security premises on each and every cloud, they're totally different. For example, AWS has VPN and other concepts. And if I go to any other cloud, concepts are totally different. And if someone is operating at a really multi-cloud level, right? Your DevOps engineers, SecOps engineers need to learn 10 different concepts, and there's a high probability of misconfiguration happening, and that opens up your attack surface, right? So I think future here for security and observability is to basically build cloud agnostic solutions where if someone learns something related to observability and security, it applies in every cloud, right? So right now we have a handful of clouds, but it might become hundreds without we knowing, right?
Sounds to me like we need to do another session, but
Yeah. so I think that is where I feel industry should be moving and mostly focusing on solving this problem, which in my mind at least is unsolved problem, right? So
Yes. Mr. Naseem.
I'm completely agree with all my fellow panelists. To adding all of them, I would say one single source of truth with all these aspects. Like, Mr. Singh talk about multiple aspect, forensic. Kiran talk about multi-cloud aspect. So if we have a single source of truth where I can see, I can refer the complete team, the multiple stakeholder can refer the same source of truth. It will help all of us to solve issue quickly.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your insights. It was a extremely insightful discussion. Thank you so much. And I'd like to request Mr. Anand to stay back while all our other panelists can proceed. Thank you so much. Give them a big round of applause. And you've been a wonderful audience as well. We just have one more discussion and then we can go on for the networking dinner. On that note, I would now like to request Mr. Hemant Mishra, VP, Head of Applied Research at Swiggy, and also request Mr. Anand Patil to stay back. He is Senior Director, Systems Engineering at Cisco. Well, Mr. Hemant, I'd like to begin my first question by addressing you. Since 2014, you've become a major food ordering and delivery platform. You've come a really long way, and you've been leveraging technologies like cloud, AI, and data science. So could you tell us how instrumental these new age technologies have been in enhancing your order value? And also, how have you ensured security while doing this?
Actually, it's a pretty deep question, to be honest. And the way every startup ever has started, it's with the Excel sheet, right? Because you do not have enough money, you have put your own money. And then as you evolve, it's a catch-up game. That's the way it is. Believe it or not, and it'll remain that way. What's the catch-up game? You will look for growth and you will have tech debt, right? Which is made because you want to move very fast. And then you will realize that, okay, something has been left, and then you will come back and you will, fix those. And this is the way it's a continuous process. And on top of that, the second thing which is happening, the world is changing, right? So when you started, just to give an example, when Jio came, Airtel, Vodafone, what's the problem they were facing? That the things which they were having and the equipments they were having, they were of the previous decade. And when Jio came, they had the newer equipments, which were more efficient and everything. And they had a huge advantage. And this is what will keep happening. Because this new technologies which are coming, they are better off. And then whatever tech debt you may have, and then the newer technology, you try to marry them. Because you don't have a choice, right? You cannot say that whatever I have done previously, that's the stack which I'll keep using. And now, it's similar to that, something from here, something from there, Bhanumati ka pitara kind of thing, those who understand Hindi. And that's the way typically the system operates. And as system matures, you invest reasonable amount of time in making it sure that your stack is also improving with time. But will the stack ever reach that level, which is like we have reached the end? It'll never happen. For the simple reason that the newer technologies, they'll be superior again. And the technology which you are having today, it'll be inferior. And you'll have to keep doing this marriage. And all of us will get old in the process. So 2014 to today, let's say, coming to the question, we started that way, and today we may be, maybe Misho is one company who may claim that they are doing few millions on the sale day. We do few millions every day, and when we do those few millions, our things are more complex because we say we'll do it in half an hour, right? Or on occasion, when you're Instamart, we say we'll do it in 20 minutes. Right? So the life is extremely tricky and difficult. And it has evolved over a period of time. All right? Crucially, every instance we look at, what are the different metrics which are there. And many a times we do not have complete explainability. Now, I come from an AI background, So slightly tricky things if you look at it. These words, security and observability, we look at them in a different way. I'm having a deep learning model. I need to know what's going on inside it. Because when it goes wrong, within 15 minutes, I may be crucified that what exactly happened.
Definitely.
And those are the things where I need to spend a huge amount of time, because those aspects which are there on the other side for the business, for us, we manage those things, right? We develop the tools, machine learning tools and everything, and we need to have a very tight control on them. And the fallback mechanisms, some of the persons were talking, right, that one gateway fails, automated. All of those things we have already built because they are extremely important for us.
All right. But you just mentioned, how you've actually navigated through this entire framework. But what were the challenges that you faced when you were, doing this rapid cloud migration journey?
Again, it's not an easy answer, to be honest. Again, it's not that the challenge was one or two. We may have accumulated debt when we were moving with the speed, and then at some point of time it was like it's no more that we can continue with that.
All right.
And those are the places you go back and then you revise the things. And as I mentioned, it's a continuous process. Today, let's say we feel that AWS is a very good one, but believe it or not, some way or the other, AWS has to evolve as well. Wherever they are, that's not sufficient because so many newer technologies are coming, right? And all of that is bringing new challenges. And those challenges, because we are the consumers of them,
Sure.
we have to make it sure that we are able to migrate successfully. And this multi-cloud and these things which we are talking about, again, it's very important. What Kiran was mentioning.
Sure.
Do we have compatibility? Because let's say I cannot risk my business for the simple reason that, let's say, the cloud provider who is there, that system fails. So all of this is we are still in the process of navigating. We have come a long way from where we are, but journey is, it's continuing. I
All
would
right.
say, right?
All right, Mr. Anand, I'd like to bring you in here. How do you think companies can at least address these gaps that he was just talking about while also maintaining a strong security posture? What are the key advice that you'd like to give?
Look, I think one of the things that I guess most of us in the room who are AWS customers have the advantage of is that the tech debt for the infrastructure doesn't exist because the cloud takes care of that. Similarly, as much as you can use tooling on the cloud also helps you. So anything that you leverage which is cloud-based has multiple advantages. Obviously, it is one of recency, it is one of agility. It is also something that will allow you to quickly automate. And I think automation, like Satinder also mentioned, is critical to be able to keep that agility. And that's true not just for the infrastructure, it's also for security. How you respond to attacks. I mean, everybody talked about surface area of attacks. Right? There's no way that you're going to lock all of your open windows down. That's not a pun, by the way. But then how are you able to react? First of all, detect and then react to any incident is going to be critical of how quickly can your business recover, right? And therefore, it becomes very important for us to, one, reduce some of the tech debt by adopting cloud and cloud services even for tooling, and so you can focus on your core business, and that's where you can evolve. The second is around how do you create that framework for observability, going towards security and then automation to be able to take care of those challenges.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Anand, for sharing your insights there. Coming back to you, Mr. Hemant, converging full stack observability and security is being considered as one of the smartest solutions for agile and future ready companies. So what is your take on the same, and how easy do you think it is to take this route?
See, it is important, no doubt, and we have to move in that journey because observability, when we talk about it, it's all the speakers have mentioned earlier as well. You are having a better control, right? That's the reason. And the problem of all of that is what we heard from Anand. Human is the weakest link in the whole process, right? And all of you may have heard, to err is human, right? So we are made for that. We are supposed to do errors because we do not have the complete understanding. And when we do not have the complete understanding, mistakes could be something is happening, I do not know how it is going to affect the other thing. And one of the easiest or the most important thing which needs to be done when we are putting our stacks together is, can they be simple, right? Because the biggest problem which Kiran, you people have scaled up very fast. One of the biggest problem which we see is that uh, the people who come, right, in our organization who work, they are not thinking of 30 years staying in the organization. They are looking for 2 years, maybe 3 years. They want to do quick learning. They want to put something quickly together. Putting that infrastructure together, saying that how you need to develop and everything, that becomes very important. And let's say sec and DevOps coming together. All these policies start making a difference. So one of the biggest mantra when the systems are so complex, can we simplify when we are putting our code together? Because if code is not written in a fashion where the interaction is happening and then you change one thing here and something else gets affected, that becomes the problem. And major thing is, most of you who may have worked on systems, this monolithic codes, we are working with the speed, we are putting the things together, sec, dev, everything goes out of the window, right? These are places where many a times maybe AWS can help. But again, what Anand and Satyendra was mentioning, AWS can provide you only to the limit, right? Rest of the things, they still need to be managed by you. And there was a very small incident which was there. We were working with a vendor and a certain key was there.
All
And
right.
the key got passed on. And AWS came back to us, said that your private key is somewhere. Please take an action, right? This is that monitoring and observability. That's something which is happening somewhere, and maybe that information comes back to me. So it's very, very important that how these systems are built, and AWS or Cisco or many other systems which are working in tandem, they give that particular what you say baseline to all of us. But that's, please do not go blind that they have taken care of everything, because that's not where the buck stops. When we do the mistake and the thing comes to us, government with the data policy has said 250 crore is the fine when the data gets leaked, right? Responsibility lies with us. So that's what I would say about this.
All right. So one last question before we wrap up on this discussion. If you could really share your own journey on how full stack observability has benefited Swiggy, and how important, you just mentioned about detecting anomalies in real time, how important it is to ensure a strong security posture, especially because you are dealing with customers in real time.
So maybe the audience is in a better shape to tell me that who are using Swiggy, how often you see it being down. And if you are not seeing it down for long duration across India, let's say, then we have achieved what we wanted to be. And to be honest, every incident which happens, basically, when the RCA and everything is done, and then we are having a complete understanding what may be going on, and then the automation comes into the picture. And typically, many of you may have seen that, let's say, certain payment gateways get disabled at certain point of time. The main reason is that we have already figured out that it's not working. Automatically, the things get changed, right? Certain systems which, let's say, certain restaurants, they are not serving at a particular point of time. Pull, push mechanism both. If restaurant forgot to switch themselves off,
Yes.
we start looking and we keep monitoring, right? If something has failed, let's say a strike of delivery executive in a certain city, right? Before the strike is happening, things start being shown somewhere. And the main thing is, our system is so complex that if all of this is not built,
Sure.
it's next to impossible for us to manage, right? And as if you look at it, we started with Swiggy food marketplace, right? Now we are on Instamart. Some of you may be knowing Ginny.
Yes.
And if you look at it, if we want to develop all these services, we need to have a platform which is strong enough to support and it's agnostic. And all of this is something which is in the background, which is helping. So let's say tomorrow, if I want to launch a new service, uh, maybe it's a month's time and things can be flying. So that's the strength of our core, and it is all on the basis of automation, observability, security, all being put together, and then we
Sure.
build on top of it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mishra, for sharing how you accelerated your cloud journey. And just before wrapping up, your takeaways for our audience here, quick 2 takeaways that you'd like to share with our audience as a closing note.
Before I get into that, let me just say, Hemant, I'm completely impressed by not just the tech prowess. I mean, you call yourself a tech platform, but the amount of interactions that you need to have with your logistics partners, with the delivery agents, I'm sure that takes a whole different level of science compared to what you're doing on the tech side. So hats off to that, just managing that. And that goes for most of the companies in the room. So tech is just one half of the issue, I guess. And coming back to your question, I guess if I'm going to summarize this whole discussion from today, most of you have seen what we had to show. There's a ton of more tools and tech and security tools that we can talk about, but from an approach standpoint, I guess the first thing is improve observability by putting in enough hooks into your applications, your infrastructure, to be able to see what needs to be seen, what's important for your business. So make sure there's business context to observability. The second is use that data to protect. So observe and then protect. And lastly, like what Satinder is saying, automate. Because without automation, you will never be able to not only recover from outages, but also protect against the bad actors who probably have access to a lot more automation on the dark web than we ever think of. Right? So that would be my takeaway.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Anand, and thank you so much, Mr. Mishra. Clearly, observe, protect, innovate, and as we move forward, just to sum up the learnings of this entire evening, every organization needs to deliver exceptional and secure digital experiences to their customers, their partners, and their employees. And clearly, multi-tool approaches are going to get replaced faster and faster with unified data power strategy. In the coming years, clearly, observability driven by data will enable companies to reach further heights, and the combined power of the two will help them grow at an accelerated pace. So thank you all. It's a wrap from all of us here. And thank you all for being a great audience. And we thank all our leaders who've shared their valuable insights, and request all our guests to join us for the networking dinner. Thank you so much.